Darren, thanks so much for speaking to us. I thought we'd quickly reflect on Saturday night and what happened with Kiko Martinez and that incredible knockout. What's your reaction just 2 or 3 days on?
Oh, it's incredible. That's why there's so many boxing fans. Some might disagree, but I think it's the greatest sport in the world. And that was an example why when you think you've seen it all in this sport, you see something like that. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. The top of the bill got a bit of flack in the build-up. It was, Martinez. He actually won the world title, his first world title, the same night, that I won my world title 8 years ago, over 8 years ago, and he's still going strong. But some people, obviously, because of his age and the miles on the clock, thought he was way past it, and he just completely ripped up the script and found two of the best overhand rights you'll ever see. They were spot on, and they were intelligently thrown. They weren't just shut your eyes and hope for the best. They were set up. They were beautiful right hands, and proving that he's still a force to be reckoned with.
I mean, there were two stunning punches. On the other hand, for Kid Galahad, what does he do now? Because it must be so difficult to recover from a loss like that. There's question marks about whether he should go up in weight. He's been struggling to make this weight. But I guess as a fighter yourself, you want to try and avenge that defeat. What do you think is a sensible move for him?
Well, look, if you look at the fight, I'm sure there will be a rematch clause in the contract, so that might be something that they look to do, is get an immediate rematch. We've seen it with Anthony Joshua losing to Ruiz and then beating him in Saudi. He's now activated his rematch clause against Usyk, and it might be something that Kid Galahad chooses to do. If you look at the first 4 rounds, he was winning. He was in cruise control. He was looking comfortable, and you thought, this is going to be a formality. So they can look back on them for 4.5 rounds and say, it was going to plan. We just switched off. Not to get too technical, but there was some schoolboy errors. He was going back in straight lines. He was pulling his chin up in the air. And when you're fighting someone as seasoned as Martinez, you will get caught eventually. So there's things that he can work on. It's not like he boxed out of his skin in the first 4.5 rounds. There was improvements, and he was still winning the fight. The weight is obviously an issue. He missed the first attempt at the weight. I think it was only 100 grams over, but still, it does show you that he's tight on the weight. He always looks gaunt and drawn when he gets on the scales. So that is an obvious option moving up to super feather. But I think if you've got that clause in your contract to get an immediate shot at the world champion who's just beaten you, then you've got to go for it. But there's going to be a lot of demons he's going to have to overcome. They were, like I said before, they were two of the best overhand rights you'll ever see. And you can see it sometimes that fighters that do get knocked out like that are never the same. There's always haunts them. It's always in the back of their mind. And they're sometimes hesitant to throw their shots because of the fear of getting caught with a shot. So it'd be interesting to see how he regroups and how he recovers from that chilling knockout.
For you, having been a middleweight world champion, a man I wanted to ask you about this week is Chris Eubank Jr., because we know he's got this fight now against Liam Williams in December. As a former middleweight yourself, how highly do you rate Chris?
Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's good. He's good in an unorthodox sort of style. And what I mean by that is he neglects the jab. I think we've seen him using it a bit more against, since he's had Roy Jones in his corner. Roy Jones, we know, one of the greatest to ever lace up the gloves, and he'll be showing Chris Eubank Jr. how important it is to use the jab. The jab's the most important shot in boxing, and Chris had sort of neglected that in the past and relied on his work rate and pure aggression to sort of overwhelm opponents. I wouldn't say he's the biggest one-punch knockout artist, but he does put them together well. But I think with Roy Jones in his corner now, he's starting to box a little bit more. Didn't look great against Marcus Morrison last time out, not discrediting his opponent. So I think, he's going to have to be at his best to beat Liam Williams, who is a very good fighter. He's really, really good. come up short against Demetrius Andrade, who had him down, I think it was in the first round, but he sort of regrouped. And though he lost most of the rounds against Andrade, he was still in there, showed he's tough enough to mix it with the best. A real live and game opponent who truly believes that he can beat Chris Eubank Jr. I think Chris Eubank Jr. is going to have to be smart. He can't fight like he's fought previously because he's in there with a good operator in Williams. So I think he's got to try and get behind the jab. He's got to listen to Roy Jones Jr., who will obviously come up with a good game plan. And it's a good fight. It really is a good fight. One I'm looking forward to.
Do you think Chris can be a world champion one day? When you look at the current world champions in that division, the likes of Charlo, Golovkin, Canelo might drop back down potentially. Do you see him at that level yet?
I don't think he'd be one of those, if I'm honest. Not yet, no. And he's not getting any younger. I mean, you'd say he's in his prime, but that soon passes. I know all about that, but I don't think he beats any of those names there. You need a bit of luck in the division. Look, if I'm deadly honest, I wouldn't have been a world champion, I don't think, if I was fighting in this current crop of fighters. They're elite level fighters. It'd be interesting to see what Golovkin's got left. He's been out of the ring a little while. He's fighting Ryota Murata on the 29th of December. So that would be interesting. But he doesn't, at the minute, beat that crop of fighter. In all fairness, look, you need a bit of luck in boxing, and I'm pretty sure if I was around, I wouldn't have beaten any of those. So I wouldn't have been calling myself a world champion. So he's just so happens there's some good fighters in the middleweight division at the minute. But look, he'll have one eye on the world champions. But I think most importantly, you can't overlook Leon Williams, who obviously has his own goals and aspirations of being a middleweight world champion.
And just finally, I wanted to ask you about a fight that we think will be confirmed or at least ordered this week, and that's Tyson Fury against Dillian Whyte. If that fight was to take place, do you give Dillon any chance of beating Tyson Fury and finally becoming a world champion?
Well, it don't get much tougher, does it? He's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, Tyson Fury. Incredible. Just adapts to his opponent. He can change his style. You just don't know what style you're going to get in the ring with. He can fight on the back foot. He can fight on the front foot. He can punch with both hands. Now he's believing in his physical presence and power. He's really dominating on the front foot like we see against Wilder. He's just a nightmare. And, arguably the hardest man to beat in boxing at the minute because of what I've listed. There's just so many strings to his bow. And I think it would be very, very difficult for Dillian Whyte to beat Tyson Fury. But having said that, look at the top of this conversation. Kiko Martinez was a big underdog against Kid Galahad, and he found the shot. It's boxing. There's not much. It's sometimes you just get it right on the night, and that's what Dillian Whyte will have to do. He'll just have to fight out of his skin and hope that Tyson Fury has an off night. Look, it's heavyweight boxing. One punch can change it all, so you never know. But you'd have to think that Tyson Fury would go in a massive favourite in that fight.